everyone, welcome to another episode of my Victorian Sims 2 challenge. I hope you are in for a great weekend. We have quite a lot in store for us today, and I felt like it would only be appropriate that we spend a couple sim days with Philippa because she's getting older, and very soon we won't be able to spend as much time with her, and I know that so many of you guys are Philippa stans. I mean, it's hard not to love her. She's handy, she's clever, she's also very resourceful. She started her own tea business around town. However, she is starting to get a little weaker. She walks around coughing a little bit. We have some kind of illness kind of sweeping through New Whitby. It's not necessarily a concern yet. It is just something to note that everyone should perhaps be a little more careful than they usually are and watch their social encounters. However, I, as the wonderful Simmer here, choose to completely ignore my own advice, and we already hosted a garden tea party, and the Lawson family here is actually gearing up to start having a big anniversary celebration for Philippa and her second husband, Maurice. We don't see Maurice a whole lot around town because he's not my favorite sim. Listen, Maurice and her son Jasper here, like, they are what they are. I know a lot of you actually think Jasper is like really attractive, but I'm over here just like, dude, what's wrong with your jaw? But anyways, we have, I decide that maybe it would be fun to have like a proper little family reunion. So if you didn't know, in The Sims 2, if you invite over 10 Sims who are related to your family, then you can get a little memory in your Sims memory system for having a family reunion. And I think there is no better family to do this with than the Lawsons, considering the fact that the Lawsons are huge. There are so many of them because Philippa had, what, like 6, 7 kids? Only one of them passed away as an infant. And of course we've got a little pig soup here, but we can just pretend that's not there. And so Nathaniel in his undergarments, thank you, Nathaniel, I'm so glad you are dressed for the occasion, decides to have a nice little toast for his mom. Nathaniel is Philippa's heir to the Lawson fortune, and of course the eldest kid in the family. And so we've got some Holloways, we have some Kings. It's mostly Holloways, Kings, and Lawsons for this family reunion. And everyone has a little toast to Philippa, like our grand matriarch. No one is quite iconic level as Philippa in this family. Oh my god. No, Philippa! Oh, no, not at the party. Not at the party. Look, she doesn't want to go either. I always imagined that Philippa would go when it was her time. Like, she would pass away and be like, you know what, I've led a very fulfilled life. I have no regrets. I will go easily. And that is not the case. She left quite a large sum of money to her children and grandchildren and late husband. Interestingly enough, it's her nephews who are having the hardest time at the celebration. I've played with Flora a few times, and she's been really close to her mom, so I kind of anticipated that Flora would actually have the hardest time here, but it's actually the grandkids and the nephews, so Edgar Holloway and Ernest King. They are just having a proper breakdown in the middle of the party. But I guess, what are you gonna do when your famous aunt passes away? However, we do have a game of whist in honor of Philippa because Philippa loved her whist. She loved her card games, and so the kiddos in the family are just having a nice little calm game of whist in honor of her. And unfortunately, they do kind of sit up and down. It's almost Sims 4-esque how much they kind of get up and then sit down and then get up and sit down, but it's just because they're having existential crises in between throwing down some cards. Sims 2 stuff, you know? Her grandson here, this is Theodore, is having a really tough time. He lived in the household with Philippa, and so for Nathaniel's sons, it is a little bit harder than expected. So now that the party is out of the way, now that Philippa has spent her last day it is time to head over to the main king household. So this is my French Longbourn house. It is up on my Tumblr, I believe, if you want to download it. And you can see we have a little genie's lamp here, and because they are the upper class, I do let them use the genie's lamp, especially for financial purposes. And thankfully, everyone is in a little bit less existential. Oh, no, that's not true. Ernest is still having existential crises, left and right. He and his mother, Louisa, are really leaning on each other in this time of mourning because Cornelius is already dead. And oh my gosh, they've actually had a hard go. Ernest lost his father, and then he lost his aunt Philippa. I am not having them be in mourning clothes just because if we went into mourning every time a friend or a family member passed away in this hood, like, we would never get over it. Everyone would be in mourning all of the time. However, you can see that Ernest actually has a little cold himself. I think he picked it up at Philippa's anniversary party because Philippa was coughing and Maurice was coughing and a couple other Sims were coughing as well. So we are starting to get a little bit concerned about the illness that is traversing around town. However, we do have some really good things to look forward to in the king household today. We can see that Ernest's wife, Rosabelle, is heavily pregnant, and despite the fact that Ernest is just in family aspiration failure, he will soon have a baby, and hopefully his mood will go up from there. I don't think it can get worse at this point, so we're really banking on Rosabelle's baby actually boosting his aspiration. Although Rosabelle is a little worried. This is her first child. She knows that she will be raising her baby in the best possible house, but she also is having a little bit of a hard time kind of adjusting to this really cushy lifestyle. Rosabelle was raised in a very small household with her twin brother Hiram and her mom Della. And Della was a single mother for a very long time until she married Bertie. And so she's just used to doing a little more work around the house and is definitely having a bit of a rough time adjusting to actually having maids do all of the work for her. We have Louisa settling into her elderhood well. She's finally stopped having aspiration failure around town after the loss of her husband Cornelius, which was very sudden and untimely, but she's kind of recovering. It's going okay, and Rosabelle is also spending a lot of time looking out through the telescope outside. Since it's winter, she's not spending as much time outside. However, I did actually build a new community lot for New Whitby that I've been eager to try out. So we leave Louisa at home. She's still sort of in her mourning period and she's not really interested in leaving the house very much. But we send Ernest and Rosabelle out to have a little fun at the Netherby ice ponds. So I wanted to have a nice little area where we could just like go ice skating. For those of you who don't know, I was actually a competitive figure skater for 13 years, and so I just thought this would be really fun to have in my game. I don't know, and I actually did download a modded ice rink that doesn't actually have those like really tall barriers around it that look very historical. So this just kind of looks like it's a proper pond, and that's sort of what I wanted. Unfortunately, Ernest is not exactly the most athletic sim, and is struggling quite a bit with his ice skating. He's up and down, falling constantly, like the poor guy. He's trying, like he keeps getting up, he keeps trying, but we also see Nathaniel Lawson here. I think we just wanted a fun excursion for some of the Kings and Lawsons. We have Beatrice here, there's Septimus, so we have quite a few Lawsons here. I mean, Septimus isn't a Lawson, but you know. And because Rosabelle is the way she is, she's having some hot flashes from her pregnancy, so she's like, screw coats, I don't need it, it's all fine. But she's also very athletic, so Rosabelle's one true hobby is sports. So she really loves doing these little athletic things. Since she's pregnant, she can't really go ice skating, it would be a bit of a hazard, but instead she throws some balls with Septimus and just has some fun, has some games, you know? Meanwhile, Mr. Bow and Nathaniel Lawson are hanging out with Ernest, and look at that, Ernest actually ends up becoming fit, which I totally wasn't expecting. They do come home and have a nice rest because Ernest is still kind of sick. Actually, that was a little bit of maybe not the best call on my part, having Ernest actually go out and doing something like athletic while he is ill. But they come home, they have a nice snuggle in bed, the fire is warm and toasty in their bedroom because the maid had everything planned for when they get home. And these two are just sweet. Like, I have never loved a couple as much as I love Ernest and Rosabelle. They're just so good together. The maid, Meredith Ellis, also decides to pour some hot chocolate. This is a hot chocolate little tea set, and she also has a nice cozy little afternoon waiting for the family to get up for afternoon tea and dinner and stuff like that. So she hangs out in the kitchen and just sort of enjoys herself. Gets a little shaky from all the caffeine from the chocolate. And Ernest does retire to having a nice warm bath. I also just kind of wanted to show you the laundry mod that I've been using because you can change the color of the fabrics. Unfortunately, he's still feeling really sick. I think he overexerted himself with the ice skating, and he was hoping a warm bath would sort of regulate his bodily temperatures a little bit more. But unfortunately, that's not exactly the case. Oh my god, Ernest, no! You're the heir. Oh my god. Guys, we're losing the heir. This has never happened in one of the main families before. We just lost the heir, and we don't... Oh my god. No. Okay. Well, let's hope that Rosabelle has a boy, so we don't have any issues there. Oh my god, he's leaving a poor pregnant wife. Well, okay. Is this a little bit my fault? Yes. And Rosabelle doesn't even know that he's passed away yet, and instead goes into labor literally moments later. Oh my god, what a day. What a day this has been. So, let's keep our fingers crossed for a boy, please. So we're gonna do random. Okay, there's only one baby, which maybe isn't the best situation here. I was almost hoping for multiples for once in my life. And here we have a beautiful baby. Oh, look how cute. Black or brown hair, I'm not quite sure. Probably black. Oh, it's a girl. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, this poor woman, she has no idea that her husband has passed away, and she's kind of just put herself in a very precarious situation by having a girl instead of an heir to this household. So, the King estate is not going to be passed down to little Rosetta. So, Rosetta Ernestine, of course Ernestine after Ernest, her father, will inherit a dowry, but she will not inherit this house. So the house is thus going to be entailed out to a different family. And if we look at the family tree here, we can see that the next closest kin that would be inheriting the estate is Charles King. So we have Daisy, we have Marisol, but of course they are not men and neither of them have boys at the moment. So it goes to Charles, and then after Charles, it will be inherited by Charles' son. Now, Charles does actually already have a son. He's married to Annalise Harvey. And so Charles' son, John Harris, will actually be the next heir in the King household. I can't believe I just kind of lost a bloodline. And only on Generation 4. I couldn't even manage this until the end of the series, although let's be real, we don't totally trust that New Whitby is actually going to last until Generation 10. I hate to say it, but the hood I just discovered has been corrupt since Generation 1. That's right. We've been playing with a corrupt hood. Honestly, we're lucky the neighborhood hasn't imploded already. So here you can see we have little John Harris. And Louisa also is sick. I am keeping a watchful eye on her because I am not in the mood to lose another sim. And like, Louisa doesn't deserve that. She just lost her husband and her son. We will be putting Louisa in some mourning clothes as well. Rosabelle is having a little hard time taking care of little Rosetta, or Rosie as we can call her, and she's kind of having, I think, this combination of postpartum depression and grief as she just lost her husband and is also in a precarious situation financially now. So she is not taking the news very well. We see her crying, we have her little punch happening, but she does become best friends with her mother-in-law. We can really see Rosabelle and Louisa kind of leaning on each other in their time of grief. They both realize the situation and how dire it is to lose an heir before, you know, his own heir was born. So we have a bit of a tricky situation because, in theory, Rosabelle and Rosetta could stay home and live with Charles and his family. However, I don't really think that Annalise would particularly like that. I almost envision them as a bit of a Sense and Sensibility situation where, like Eleanor's immediate family, they kind of have to move out. So here is Rosabelle in her mourning gear. We gave her a little lace veil and a black bonnet. Just something kind of simple, but, you know, mournful. Now, Rosabelle is kind of recovering in a very isolated way. She isn't really interested in taking care of her baby at the moment. She's kind of leaving those duties to her mother-in-law and the maid, and instead is sort of isolating herself in her late husband's bedroom, doing some reading, just kind of trying to distract herself. She does, of course, end up taking care of Rosetta every so often, and does feel a bit of a bond with her, but she also is just really struggling to feel the full emotions of just having had birth and everything. She's kind of shut down a little bit emotionally. And so Louisa has the unhappy task of calling, or, well, writing letters to everyone in the household, to everyone in the family and close relations, to tell them of Ernest's death and invite them to the funeral services. So we do end up having the funeral service here at St. Philip's Parish, even though the family has moved to St. Catherine's Parish. But we wanted Ernest to be buried here because his ancestors are buried here, his father is buried here, and like Catherine and Howard King, his grandparents, were buried here. Edgar is still in full-on existential crisis mode. I feel like there's always someone breaking down in the corner. And Charles does come to the funeral service as is expected. His wife Annalise gets here a little late, which is like maybe not the best thing that could happen socially, but you know what? We're lucky they showed up at all because Ernest and Charles were never particularly close, especially after Ernest was originally supposed to marry Annalise. I know this feels like it was a very long time ago, but he was originally kind of betrothed to Annalise, and then Annalise and Charles had to get married very quickly because they were caught by Daisy in a bit of a compromised situation. So we have a small and sensible church service. Rosabelle was raised Catholic, very Catholic, and she is pretty strong in her Catholic faith. And so she actually agreed to have the service at St. Philip's Parish only if a nun from the local cathedral would be spared to give the sermon herself. It's a little bit unorthodox, but we did have to sort of make some compromises here, considering the fact that the Kings are generally Protestant, and Della raised her children very Catholic. So we say goodbye to our dear heir Ernest. I really liked Ernest. He was such a sweet, gentle soul, and he will be really missed in this neighborhood. Meanwhile, after the service, we stop in to Charles and Annalise's cottage. And this isn't really a small cottage, it's a proper sized cottage. And a beautiful home, although sparsely decorated, because they and their two kids don't have a ton of money. They spent most of their money building the cottage and purchasing the cottage. So it's a little small. It's not near as grand as the French Longbourn King estate, but Annalise and Charles are actually very excited to move into the King estate. Annalise has always had an eye for the more sophisticated, the grandeur, you know? And so she's like comforting Charles, but she's also like, listen, you were born for this, you deserve this. You are about to get everything we've ever hoped for. Because Annalise wants a very high situation in society and would dream of a title one day for herself or her kids. And moving into the king heirship is the way to do it. So they've already started having the servants pack up their estate, and little John Harris here, you can actually see playing the piano, is going to be the next heir to the king fortune. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh. And of course little John just knows that his uncle passed away and is really upset about it. He doesn't understand the full extent of the pressure that is going to be placed onto his shoulders yet. Oh my god. Oh my god, Louisa. Oh my god. No! Have you ever just had something happen in your game and you just have to pause and just be like shocked? Okay, so I refuse to have this much tragedy happen in one episode, so I actually have Rosabelle make this futile attempt to plead for her mother-in-law's life. We just can't handle any more death. And I am like convinced that this isn't going to work. Like, they are best friends, but I don't think their relationship is actually that high, so I was kind of like, this is hopeless, but we're gonna give it a go. This is the first time in New Whitby history that I have pled for anyone's life. And so Grimm gives her the choice of hands to see which the soul or whatever is in, and she actually wins. She wins against the Grim Reaper. Oh my god. And so now we have Louisa rising up from death to hopefully be healed and live the rest of her elderhood in peace and tranquility. I'm at a loss of words right now. Wow, and she honestly looks kind of upset about it. Like, Louisa's kind of like, cool, I could have been with my son and husband and you saved me for this existence? Really? Great, this is definitely what I wanted. Time passes swiftly in the King household, however, and it is time for little Rosetta's birthday. I am also sorry I named Rosetta and Rosabelle so similarly. I like honestly didn't even realize that when I chose the name, which is my own fault. And so, oh, she has brown hair. I totally wasn't expecting her to have brown hair. So I actually decided, since she has brown hair, I would give her a light, like dirty blonde brown hair, kind of in reminiscence to her father. And I think she actually looks quite a lot like her father. She has Ernest's skin tone, actually, with the little like moles on her skin. She has her mom, Rosabelle's, big eyes, which I think are absolutely adorable. So here she is. She's a cutie, and this poor little girl has no idea that her life is about to be uprooted because they have just received word that Charles and Annalise will not have them stay in the same estate. So unfortunately, Rosetta and Rosabelle do have to move out on their own. Louisa decides to stay in the main King household, as is her right. I mean, her son Charles is moving in, and Charles isn't going to make his mom move out, you know? So Rosabelle, in an effort to kind of understand the complexities of life that have just been thrust upon her, goes to spend some time at the local Catholic church. She really is starting to lean into religion and Catholicism at a moment when life is very hard for herself. And so this is actually very similar to her own mom, Della. Della, after like some personal tragedies, which we'll get into later, really leaned into the Catholic Church as she was raising her twins as a single mother. And Rosabelle kind of remembers her mom talking about leaning into religion during moments of tragedy. So she spends a little time just sitting in the church, sitting in the cathedral, enjoying herself, just kind of thinking about what life is going to be like now, and how maybe it doesn't have to be so hard after all. She was never totally comfortable in a big estate like the King estate, you know? Like, it never exactly was a place she felt settled into. So maybe this is a bit of a blessing in disguise. She goes up to the very tip top and sort of just kind of like has a little chat with God and a little conversation about what her life is going to look like and how she promises to lean on him for some future experiences. So that is where we are going to end today. I know it was a little bit of an emotional roller coaster, but I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And it's so hard for me to think that we just lost Ernest and his aunt Philippa. Philippa has been such an icon, and I know a lot of you guys are really going to miss her. There was actually a conversation about turning her into a vampire, but New Whitby doesn't have any supernaturals in its hood, and it didn't feel right. It felt like the best way to honor Philippa was to let her participate in the full circle of life, you know? So with that, I will see you guys next time. Love you all so much. Thanks for being part of my community. I will see you later. Bye!